It's over, it's over, it's over. After more than a year of uncertainty, we finally got a decision from the Athletics Integrity Unit. Knighton, the two-time global medalist in the 200 meters, the two-time Olympian in the 200, and the world record dominator in the 200 meters in the junior ranks, has officially been banned for 4 years from international competition in track and field. This was quite the news to wake up to. Right now, Knighton is still only 21 years old, but with this ban now in place, he will not be eligible to compete until he turns 25. And if you're doing the math at home, this also means that he will not be able to race when the 2028 Los Angeles Olympic Games takes place. This is honestly one of the biggest bans in recent track and field history, as Knighton has already reached borderline superstar status over the past couple of seasons. But the real question at hand is, what really happened, and what changed since he was recently allowed to compete after being provisionally suspended in 2024? Now, to update you on the Knighton lore, he was initially suspended after a positive test for trenbolone back on March 26th of 2024. And trenbolone is a metabolite of the nandrolone family, and specifically trenbolone acetate is commonly used in livestock and in cattle, and they use this to increase muscle growth and to increase appetite. But specifically for an athlete, this can also have massive benefits in muscle growth and overall strength. Therefore, it certainly has high performance-enhancing benefits. Now, after his initial test, Knighton pleaded innocence, stating that this was only the result of eating oxtail soup in a small restaurant in Florida. This kind of preliminary excuse has been done before, but it hasn't resulted in an athlete being reinstated, at least not from what I can remember. However, for Knighton, in June of 2024, just 3 months after his initial suspension, he was allowed to return to competition as the United States Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, and their independent arbitrator found that Knighton had no fault in his reasoning, and everything basically made sense, given this oxtail soup experience and his positive trenbolone test. This was the only time that I can remember where this food excuse actually worked. And specifically, Travis Tygart, the USADA CEO, stated that we did what the rules require us to do in all positive cases. We can take comfort that justice was served and transparency as required by the rules was achieved. Also, and this is something that many don't remember, Knighton's initial positive test was taken in an out-of-competition scenario, so none of his athletics results were ever initially suspended. But now, it very much does appear that the tables have turned, and they have turned drastically. In this new update from World Athletics and the World Anti-Doping Agency, they stated the following. The Court of Arbitration for Sport, or CAS, has partially upheld 2 appeals by World Athletics and by the World Anti-Doping Agency against USA track and field athlete Knighton following an anti-doping rule violation. Knighton is sanctioned with a 4-year period of ineligibility starting from today, with credit for the provisional suspension that was served between the 12th of April in 2024 and the 19th of June in 2024. A hearing took place on the 23rd and 24th of June of 2025 at the CAS headquarters in Lausanne, Switzerland, where Mr. Knighton argued that the violation was caused by the ingestion of an oxtail dish contaminated with trenbolone. After considering the scientific evidence, the CAS panel determined that there is no proof that would support the conclusion that oxtail imported into the U.S. would be likely to contain trenbolone residues at the level required to have caused an athlete's adverse analytical finding. The appeal is upheld. Mr. Knighton is disqualified retroactively from the 26th of March 2024 to the 12th of April 2024. As stated by the CAS, the meat contamination scenario fell short of the required proof and was statistically impossible. This final sentence was the nail in the coffin in this situation. Calling this kind of scenario statistically impossible, to me, shows that the AIU figured out that there was no way that a positive test, at least at the levels of Knighton's test, would ever show up based on this reasoning. I would love to learn more about exactly how this was statistically impossible, but for now, this really was a powerful last sentence. This is basically the exact same conclusion that was reached when diving into the Shelby Houlihan situation, where she tested positive for nandrolone after eating a pork burrito. And it's this kind of extra step that is often necessary to see that certain levels of PEDs in an athlete's system simply cannot be reached by basic ingestion. Now, this is already a huge dent in Knighton's career, knowing that he won't be able to compete in the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. But what some have already discovered is that Knighton's suspension in 2029 will officially end on July 11th. And this means two potential things. One, he may not even be able to compete in that year's World Championships if he in fact chooses to try. And number two, he might not even be able to compete in the United States Nationals, which of course would be required to qualify for the World Champs. For 2025, the United States Nationals were held from July 31st through August 1st, so if that proves to be the 4-day stretch in 2029, then potentially Knighton could compete. But if we go back to the 2022 season, the US Nationals were held on the weekend of June 25th and the 26th. And if this is the case, Knighton would not be eligible to compete for that year's Nationals in 2029, meaning that since he can't compete in the US Nationals, he would not be able to qualify for Worlds. This ban, at minimum, places Knighton outside of the 2026 Ultimate Championships. It places him outside the 2027 World Champs, and of course, the Olympic Games in Los Angeles. And if the 2029 season is early, he will also miss that year's World Championships. There is a very good chance that this really is a career ender for Knighton. Yes, he's still young, and yes, he still has the ability to compete after turning 25, but Knighton does have other options in other sports. In high school, he was a standout football player, and he was actually heavily recruited by many colleges, as he, of course, was quite fast. And some are saying that he should seriously check out this possibility if he wants to. Knighton's next step is, of course, an uncertainty right now. Nobody knows what he'll do next, nobody knows where he'll go, but one thing is for sure, he will not have the ability to race until 2029. Here are Knighton's personal records in track and field right now, and from my perspective, it is very possible that these will be the records that stand forever to his name, even if there are asterisks next to them. He was decent at the 400, he had a few good races in the 100, but most will know Knighton as a 200 specialist, as his times, especially for his age, were just outrageously fast. With this new conclusion regarding Knighton's use of PEDs, the question should be asked, were Knighton's results too good to be true? Was it legitimate to see an 18-year-old run a 1949 and become the fourth fastest athlete of all time back in 2022? Was it real, seeing someone dismantle a Usain Bolt record during the 2021 Olympic trials? And was it a genuine accomplishment to own all of the top 13 200 times in junior running history? This ban adds a tremendous amount of drama, not just to the record books, but to the entire landscape of sprinting. And given the competitive nature in track, and the incredible athletes that continue to be cranked out every single season, it might be too much to ask to wait for 4 years and then return to the track and still be competitive for Knighton. And now I would love to hear from all of you about this runner. Do you think that Knighton was genuinely guilty? Do you think this is the end of his racing career? And if he does come back in the 2029 season, what will you expect from the then 25-year-old Erriyon Knighton? Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, until next time.